Neurodivergent Connection. My next guest is a special education teacher, a school psychologist, and a coach. She explains why AUDHD isn't just autism and ADHD, and how a simple nonverbal drawing method helps neurodivergent adults heal without being forced to talk it out. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about her. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Just scooting. Good. Do it. Okay.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection. Today I'm joined with Stephanie Lewis. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Reed. I appreciate this.
Not a problem. Like I always do, I usually start off with, tell me a little bit about yourself before we get going.
Okay. Well, I am 64 years old. I'm married. We have one daughter who's in her 30s. I am a retired special education teacher. I'm also a school psychologist and a transformational coach. I found out about, although this was my career, this was literally what I have done working with people on the spectrum, whether or not they were diagnosed or not, since I was 25. So almost 40 years. And in one way or another, including assessment, developing materials, developing life plans, either for a school system or outside now as a coach. I found out at 61 myself. I found out about me. I found out about my spouse. I knew about our daughter when she was 14 months. And that was because that was when I was working on my doctorate. Like literally in the midst of an internship, the kid stopped walking and started losing language. And I was like, oh, I think I know what this could be. And I had her diagnosed at 7 years old, and then it took another umpteen years to figure out about myself too, that I am actually far more severe than she is. So it's been interesting.
All right. To start off, how do you usually explain what you do to someone who's never heard the term AUDHD before?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually. So, so there's a real misunderstanding about what AUDHD is, and it's because it's a fairly new manifestation that they figured out. So you kind of just can I give some background then? So
Okay, go on.
the okay, huh?
Go on.
Oh, thank you.
Give us a
Okay.
background.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the American Psychological Association and the DSM 5 now. So until almost 20 years ago, autism itself was a standalone diagnosis. ADHD itself was separate as well. Um, and both had very limited criteria for inclusion.
Hmm.
So women disproportionately were diagnosed with schizophrenia, which I believe is what my mother-in-law was, and that entire family on my husband's side of the family, as well as both my parents, who never, I mean, we're talking about people who were born in the 20s and the 30s, they never would have been diagnosed with anything like that. So about 30 years ago, the APA, that's the American Psychological Association, started looking at that these things were not discrete standalone diagnoses, that there were lots of different things that kind of clustered together on a spectrum or as a data set. I guess that's truly what a spectrum is a data set, that all these things are similar together and you could lump them together. So that's where the spectrum came from. That is actually why, first of all, so many more people are being diagnosed. Whereas before, it was just like when I was a teacher, it was the kid who sat on the floor and squealed and did this. Well, that's such a limited number of people, and far more people like us who are intelligent, verbal,
Hmm.
independent. We all of a sudden they started noticing us. So that was the first thing that happened was they changed it and they put several different things on a spectrum, and all of them were put there because they had similar characteristics. Then they started noticing that a lot of these coexisted together, and one of those things was ADHD and autism. So the first thing that happened with that was they assumed that you had autism, you had ADHD, and both of these things kind of lived together in our heads in an independent way. They didn't really coexist, they didn't intermingle, they didn't have a baby or anything like that. Now, what they're discovering is it's not autism and ADHD. It's not ADHD. It's something that is a separate, standalone
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. This is not yet in the DSM. They're still trying to flesh it out. And what they have discovered is really pretty exciting. And it's kind of obvious to anyone. I put myself to my doctorate working as a research statistician. And I have been fascinated with this all my life. It's just truly, people who think differently have always fascinated me because I've always thought differently. I was always very different,
Mm-hmm.
very weird, very an outsider, you know. And what they've noticed is that these two things together, autism and ADHD, actually created a different baby, a different organism that had its own distinct characteristics. And what they're doing now is they're trying to figure out how those things look
Mm-hmm.
in different people. So, how to explain it then is, to me, is it's a separate diagnosis because it's a separate diagnosis that looks different for different people depending on how autistic you are or how ADHD you are, as well as do you have things like borderline personality disorder, um, it's very rare, but narcissistic personality disorder, which is also on the spectrum. So there are other things on the spectrum as well, like bipolar is another one that can go along with it, that kind of muddies things. So what they're doing right now is they're looking at these two together, but in doing that, what they're discovering is there's even more stuff that goes into it. Have you seen all that research? It's
No,
very
but
interesting. Yeah, it's
what
very.
people don't realize is
Yeah, what am
when
I
they
missing?
hear the term neurodivergent, it's an umbrella.
Yes,
It's not just autism and ADHD.
I think
There
that's
are
what I'm saying, very
so
wordy.
there are so
Yeah,
many other disabilities that go under it,
that's right. And
and
I guess
people
that's
got
what
to
I was
remember
saying,
that.
using too many words to say. Sorry.
No problem.
I
Now,
mean,
now when go on.
no, fine.
When did you realize, oh, this was me you're describing?
Honestly, when I found out it was on a spectrum, I started wondering about myself. And I, like most of us, I also have CPTSD, and I had a generalized anxiety diagnosis. And everyone said, no, you're anxious. Yeah, I know I'm anxious. Wouldn't you be?
Hmm.
I mean, seriously. So, it, oh, for almost 20 years, for
Mm.
almost the whole time. And it wasn't until I started looking at my own family and wondering about not just Catherine, our daughter, but say my husband or other people, that I realized I could get evaluated myself and find out, is this what it was? And yeah, sure enough, it is. And while right now, I'm sure you know, AUDHD is not an official diagnosis, but it's just because they're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's good enough that we can still find ways to remediate.
Hmm. I mean, what's amazing is more and more people are using that term when they realize they have both.
Oh, yeah,
And it's a whole new term. And
it is.
when
It's
you,
wonderful.
it is because when you
Yeah.
tell someone I have AUDHD, I mean, it's like they look at you like, what do you have? Because in the beginning, you used to say, oh, I have this and I have this. Now
Mhm.
they've taken two disorders, and they've combined them because they're finding out that more and more people have both. If you have autism, you're likely to have ADHD, or if you have ADHD, you're almost likely to be autistic as well, because they kind of go hand
It's,
in hand.
yeah, it's, they said 50 to 60. The latest statistics are now 70 to 80, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That is that. So it's going to be interesting to see in the end once they're finished with all the research. So if, here for myself, when I was working, now I am ABD on the doctorate. I didn't finish it. I got all the way through up and I stopped. Um, but when I was working on it, the APA was doing its last differential diagnoses between autism and schizophrenia. And I got to do some of
Mm.
that research with the Wechsler Corporation, which was really pretty cool. And so that's one of the reasons that I became so interested in looking at how spectrum disorders get misdiagnosed and to especially women. So males tend to be disproportionately diagnosed with ADHD, leaving out autism. And women still disproportionately get diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar. And for some reason, that is somehow better than having the same way of thinking as all the billionaires have. The titans of industry. I mean, the most creative people out there, the most brilliant people, we have that same brain. And but there's such a stigma. People would rather have schizophrenia than have autism. Frankly,
Mhm.
once I got used to it after that first month, I was thrilled because I just thought about the possibilities and how great this would be for me. And it opened up an entire new world for me.
Right. Now
I
let's
know I'm
talk.
going in circles. Sorry.
That's all right. Now let's talk a little bit about your work. You've
Okay.
created what you describe as the first structured therapeutic process specifically for people on the spectrum.
Yes.
What problem were you seeing that made you think this needs to exist?
Well, the big thing is statistically, um, we meaning people on the spectrum, we have issues with language, social language, especially language on demand. Therapy, all therapy thus far for hearing people is talking based. You have to be able to talk, and even EMDR, which is the closest thing to being a non-language based type of therapy so far, you
Mhm.
still have to talk. And that is statistically the number one thing that people complain about with therapy. Now, as a therapist, as a therapist myself, I'm great with helping people do this and that. But when I was in a therapy session, I I couldn't generate anything and I would just blurt out things, trying to fill the time and it would look like I had done great work and I would convince myself, "Oh, I've done great work," but nothing ever got better. And when I started joining groups on Facebook, support groups on Facebook in the beginning, that was what I saw people say that, well, this helps some. I feel better doing this. I'm just going to continue on with therapy. Well, nobody ever got better. Nobody ever got anything resolved. And the big thing is rejection sensitive dysmorphia. It's RSD. We have um, people, neurospicy people, have an 80% higher suicide rate than the of suicide attempts in the general population and 60% higher of completed suicides. And of course, RSD itself
Mm.
isn't in the DSM. It should be, but it's not. But you can pretty much figure out that what's causing it is RSD. So I felt like there needed to be something that wasn't language based. And when I started, it didn't take much for me to find something that I could then say, oh, something like this might work. So this is an example. So this is not art therapy. I'm not an art therapist. I am obviously not an artist because these things aren't pretty. But what they actually are is a form of neuro art where when you draw, when you write, MRI studies show that you're bypassing the Wernicke Center, you're bypassing all the language centers here. So you're bypassing, you're not using any language. What you're doing then is bypassing all of this, and you're able to go back to your subconscious. That's what lights up, and draw out, externalize your thoughts and your emotions without having to talk about them, without having to label them. And so this is a process, it's a structured process that has steps that you go through to draw it. But outside of that, there's a lot of freedom.
Mm.
And what I like is not only does it bypass language and the need to talk, but it also gives everybody self agency. This is something you do at home. You learn a technique, you do it on your own at home. You have it's your own power, it's your own strength, it's your own confidence. The biggest thing, and for me too, the biggest thing is confidence. And do we have a reason not to be confident? Yeah, we do. I mean, look what's happened. But confidence is a habit, just like to a certain extent after, RSD itself is neuroanatomical to begin with. However, after that, it is a habit. It's a habit loop, no different than anything else. And in fact, the habit loop is very similar to the pain habit loop, which is why RSD hurts so bad. So my initial goal for myself was to get rid of RSD. That was for me
Mhm.
because RSD had ruined every relationship I'd had except for my husband. Our daughter wasn't talking to me when this happened.
Mhm.
I mean, I had no friends. I had no family. I had basically thrown everybody out or been enough that people just left. And
Mhm.
he wasn't all that thrilled with me
Well, then
either.
that brings me up to my next question
Yeah.
was there a moment in your own life where you felt traditional therapy just missed the mark?
Yes. Yes, many times. And I also did EMDR in the 90s, and I'm one of the people that it actually did harm to,
Now,
honestly.
what was the biggest thing that wasn't being understood about AUDHD clients?
Well, at the time that didn't exist, so I'm not sure how to answer your question.
All right. AUDHD has its own rhythm, like you said.
Yes,
Sometimes competing needs, sometimes constant internal noise. How do you
yes.
personally describe the AUDHD experience?
Oh, well, so there's this great meme that's going around, and it's got normal person, picture of a normal person, ADHD, autism, AUDHD. Normal person, everything is great. Person with ADHD, they're always going. People with autism need structure. Oh, the neurotypical person functions fine. ADHD, I need excitement to function. People with autism, I need structure to function. Person with AUDHD says you function. That that right there is that meme there. You function,
I
and
mean,
it's
that
yeah,
is so true because
yeah.
when a lot of
Shut down.
people think about um autistic people with jobs. And I have a really good friend who's AUDHD like me, with severe ADHD, and he's sitting there. He used to be like, he used to get depressed when he sees all these autistic people with working and having lives and being married. He's like, how can not happen to me? I'm like, well, you got to look at your life. I'm like, you have AUDHD. You have two competing disorders, and what happens is you don't have a functioning anything that functions. One's competing against the other, so you're trying to make your mind work, and it's not. And that's why with me, AUDHD makes it so hard to learn anything because the minute I learn it, it disappears unless I keep it and I use it.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the hardest thing is to hold that passion for an interest long enough to want to keep digging deeper into it so it sits in the
Right.
front of your memory.
So, can I respond to that?
Sure.
So, here's the thing. Yes, it does make it harder. I mean, it makes it
Mhm.
extremely hard. But the fact is, having both together has incredible strengths and benefits.
Yes.
And what Neurodraw, so the name of the product is Neurodraw because you're drawing from obviously. What Neurodraw does is it allows you to start learning your strengths,
Mm.
and you get that from the process. And it's not really drawing; it's curved lines and circles and simple geometric shapes. So it's nothing that's hard to do, but you do learn through doing that what your strengths are, and you learn how to get okay. So for example, let's say you're talking about memory. Okay,
Mhm.
so you can grow just like any, so for any habit you have to grow neurons. You have to get a new
Yeah.
neuron chain in the brain. Okay, so that's what this does. So if you've got memory issues from that, well, you can draw on that and you can start growing the neurons to do that in your brain through the drawing process, through repeated drawing, through building a new habit. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
you can do it without having to talk. So that part that makes a lot of us freeze, I mean, it makes me freeze, you know, that's taken away. So I have found, because I have the same problem. It's like, I have this great organizational thing I put in place, but I have no idea where it is. I can't find it and I forgot anyway. Right? That is resolving. And it's resolving from just repeated drawing and
Mhm.
repeated having that same intention and getting the neurons that I
Yeah.
need. Is it like, no, it's not, but
It's
therapy isn't.
it's basically what my therapist calls learned behavior.
Right.
You
That's
do something
exactly it.
long and you do something long enough, it sticks.
That's right. You grow the neurons in your
Yeah.
brain and you create the habit. There is no difference between that, the habit of brushing your teeth, wiping your mouth after you eat, any of that. Those are just habits, playing tennis for that
Mhm.
matter. These are just habits. And so the big one is creating the habit, like with RSD, creating the habit of not, once the crash is over, learning getting past it very quickly, and then removing that
Mhm.
habit loop of resentment and
Yeah.
revenge and yeah, I'm actually an international spy. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, that's what goes on in my brain. Yeah, I'm gonna hire, so you don't want to mess with me, boy. Yeah, right. So
Now, what's something people often misunderstand about AUDHD specifically?
that it is an equal autism and ADHD. It is not. It is a
No.
completely different manifestation. It's a gestalt.
Yeah, because I mean, you can have your ADHD could be more severe than your autism or your
Right,
autism. And what happens is one overrides the other, but
right,
still one will take over at times. It
right,
depends on your energy swing.
right. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Now, for me, I am far more ADHD than
Mm,
autistic, but now I'm unable to take a lot of prescription medicine. I have a lot of allergies that are inherited. Um, but what I'm doing, the little that I'm controlling, the ADHD has made me really autistic.
mhm,
I mean, stuff that I never could have imagined, like the sound of my poor husband breathing, people
mm.
chewing. I mean,
The
stuff
noise,
that, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, I never, or, oh, I suddenly became afraid to drive, and I love driving. And like, I'm
I mean,
terrified to get behind the
I
wheel of
can
a
tell
car
you,
now.
I can tell you that. I mean, I have, and I never knew this, I am very sensitive to sound.
Isn't that interesting?
I have tinnitus, and
Oh,
but I've been told by two ENT doctors I have exceptional hearing for someone my age. So they're like, you have tinnitus, but your hearing is way better than anyone else at your age range. I can hear in a busy place, I can hear my mother's phone ring in her purse. And even regular with me, noises, if they're repetitive, my mind picks up on that and it can't shake it.
yeah, it drives me crazy.
We have neighbors next door that cook in the morning.
Mhm.
They turn on their exhaust fan and my mind, the first time I heard it was like I was half asleep in the dream and my mind heard it and I woke up. And ever since then, I can't shake that noise. It's just an irritating noise.
Yeah. Oh, one of our neighbors, her sons, she has two sons, and they have both have ADHD. And I was just talking to her about it, and I said, your clock over here is very loud. And she said, the clock doesn't make any noise. And I said, yes, it does. And I said, it's actually louder than your refrigerator or your electricity.
I
And she
mean,
said, you
I'd
can hear that. I
rather,
said, yeah, it's very, I said, she said, what sound does the clock make? I said, duh. It's like a duh, duh, duh. And it's right next to the refrigerator. So you've got this bzz, duh, duh,
yeah.
duh, and all that.
Well, my friend, he's got a really sensitive taste buds, and he's like, he can only drink certain bottled waters because he
Oh, you
tastes
can
the
taste the
minerals in
difference.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, hell,
Oh,
he doesn't like mayonnaise because he can taste the vinegar in it.
my husband's like that.
Mm.
And that's why it's because of the vinegar. And I can't taste, and I don't like vinegar, but I can't taste it at all in mayonnaise. So, because we all
Now,
have our strengths, huh?
yeah. Now, what do clinicians tend to get wrong when ADHD and autism overlap?
um, Personally, I'm not talking about myself, but I don't really have a good answer for that from actual clinicians, but I can take a guess that it's understanding that those two things are not just comorbid, but they are an actual independent diagnosis, number one. And number two, that women, we don't know yet, but my guess is going to be that women are going to be disproportionately AUDHD than
Yeah,
men.
yeah,
I think, and it's going to be hormonal.
okay. Now, without getting too clinical,
Yeah.
what makes your therapeutic structure different from traditional approaches?
Oh, it's not language based. And you don't have to label or process emotions while you're doing it. The process itself does that for you. There's no talking about it, there's no reflection. All the stuff that holds us up is like, well, how does that make you feel? Well, I have two emotions, adrenaline and cortisol. Seriously, I just put up a reel about that the other day, and it was like really super, super popular. And it's because like so many people get it, I mean, what's an emotion? I had no idea. Um, so that that's what you don't have to do. Literally, truly, you've got a blank piece of paper, and you're drawing this, and it's just
Hmm.
coming out perfectly, and then through repetition, you're building a habit or you're removing what stood in your way. So one of these is removing what stands in my way from from my goal. And that's what I'm normally drawing on this month. Because I
Right,
usually do one a month
right.
to make
Now,
sure.
how does structure actually help neurodivergent clients instead of boxing them in?
Well, it depends on the client. I honestly, it depends on the manifestation of the client. So people who need less structure, people who are more ADHD. I'm just
Mhm.
going to throw that out there. I'm not saying that that's what this is, but I'm just as an example. People say who have more ADHD will tend to want less structure. People like that, then you, to do this, there would be fewer rules. because it's not necessary. Someone who is more autistic than ADHD would want more rules. Say that's just completely hypothetical. It would truly depend on the person and what their own personal needs are. And through the process, you yourself would find that out. That's one of the things that you would discover for yourself. It's not even something that I would do. I would be a facilitator of a process of brain rewiring or brain wiring.
Right. Now, a lot of autistic and AUDHD folks feel like therapy asks them to adapt to the system, not the other
Right.
way around. How
Thank
did
you.
you design your process to work with the nervous system instead of against it?
Well, just for the reason I said, and I love this question because that is huge. It's the reason I did this. There was nothing out there that did anything other than force us to not only be compared to neurotypical people, but
Hmm.
force us to think and behave like neurotypical people, completely forgetting our genius because we have it. The biggest thing everyone needs to understand is you got genius in here, people.
Hmm.
Look. Seriously, you do not need to fit into this little category. And so that was the whole point to me, was accentuating using our strengths while completely removing the deficit being the language and the emotional processing and the social part. That's removed. That's the thing in therapy. That's the
Hmm.
problem. That's what we get forced into. That's why people do things like dialectical behavioral therapy, which I did myself, and I got very little out of it because that's not the problem. That's not the problem. The
Hmm.
problem is being forced to talk like that. And
Right.
to be honest, who actually talks like that? People don't. I mean,
Right.
it's odd. So when I hear people talk about it, they say, well, I got some relief from that. Well, how about some total relief? Not just some total relief, and self
Hmm.
acceptance and recognizing your strengths.
Now, how do you handle things like burnout, shutdowns, or overwhelm inside therapy?
Well, I could say right now, I'm actually feeling better since it started. But let me just say, before we started, I told Reed that I have actually been in a shutdown since yesterday morning. And 2 hours ago, I still wasn't forming complete sentences well, so I wasn't even sure how this would go. So in term burnout in terms of therapy, well, I drew yesterday. I drew this morning in burnout. Like still this morning, I was kind of holding a cup of coffee and trying to do something, get something out so that I could move forward. And the fact is, because I don't have to talk, I don't have to think like that, I could still do this process. And so when I did it yesterday morning, well, what caused it was I had a horrible RSD thing happen on Sunday, and I didn't realize it till Monday morning, and that caused a big meltdown for me. And I wound up drawing about it, and
Mhm.
that got me out of the RSD within an hour. But I wound up with the shutdown,
Mhm.
and so I had vertigo. That was
Mhm.
kind of the holdover. That's what I was telling Reed in the beginning before this started. So, in other words, it didn't matter as long as I could do that, as I could set an intention, I could write the intention down on the piece of paper, and I could just let the process go. It, I felt it was relieved.
Okay. Now, you specifically reach out to people like you who are
Yeah,
AUDHD individuals.
yeah,
Why was
yes.
it important for you to name explicitity?
Well, I guess because I've always been a big underdog person, and I see us as the underdog because we're not in the DSM. Um, the APA very much drags its feet with stuff like this. We don't. autism and ADHD, none of these, autism, ADHD, we don't even have our own norm groups. So at no time during any kind of standardized testing are we anything other than compared as a disability. So it was important to me that there was something that with reality that we could be disabled,
Hmm.
but it's probably not going to be because of autism or ADHD. It's going to be because of something else.
Yeah.
And so that it was very important to me that as a school psychologist, as someone who did this testing and still does that and still advocates, that to try to get us out of what I see is like this ridiculous thing where no matter what, we're disabled.
Yeah.
But we're not.
Right. Now, what happens when the client finally feels seen instead of analyzed?
Oh, they start feeling confident,
No.
which is lovely. Having confidence is an awesome thing.
Yeah,
And like I said, it's a habit, it's something that you learn. No one is born with confidence.
so true. Now, have you noticed clients opening up differently when they realize you share lived experience?
I think that because I'm very open, I've always been, I'm a motor mouth. I'm a constant talker. Um, so I'm just one of those people. I don't have a lot of secrets. And so, yeah, I think I'm hoping that that part of me, although it's pretty annoying and people let me know that it's pretty annoying, I'm hoping that part of me lets people know that it's okay.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to say still have RSD. I can just get past it quickly. I still have all these things. I just have ways to get out of it and to manage it now. I don't have to suffer through it. And I also I'm also an NLP practitioner as well as a hypnotherapist,
Mhm.
and meditation. And I bring stuff like that in. Don't panic. No, you're not going to be sitting for 30 minutes meditating.
Yeah.
But I do bring in other things to help expedite it as would be appropriate. I don't do it with everybody. I don't do it all the time by any means.
For many AUDHD adults, therapy isn't just about coping, it's about unmasking and rebuilding identity. How does your
Boom.
process support that?
That's the whole point. That's the whole thing. Coping means fitting in as a disabled person. We're not trying to cope or fit in. We are getting our own identity, our own selfhood, our own self
Mhm.
agency. We're getting our own strength and our own confidence. And there is truly that if I had a huge life goal, that would be it. If you look worldwide, we cut across race, culture, everything. And we are unidentified, we're underserved, we're misunderstood in every single way. And my goal is to get things like norms in IQ tests,
Mhm.
correct structured evaluations that don't compare us to neurotypical people, but compare us to ourselves. If
Right.
they can do that for people in Bolivia, which they can't on an IQ test, they can do it for us.
Yes. Now, we talk a lot about challenges, but AUDHD comes with unique strengths. How do you help clients recognize and trust those strengths?
Those come out through the therapeutic process as people draw. It's not something I do. It's something that comes out while someone themselves are tapping into it themselves, and it comes as a gradual, not even a realization, but noticing I'm not bothered as much. This didn't
Mhm.
bother me. Oh my goodness, I feel better. And when you see that, you start feeling hope and confidence. And then as you do that, you start getting that dopamine from that.
Yeah.
And then you want to chase that dopamine
Yeah.
because that feels
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a
good.
lot. Yeah. I
It
mean, a
is.
lot of people, I mean, when you're autistic and you find that interest of yours, It's that dopamine rush of thinking, oh, I
Right.
like, I'm
It's
gonna keep it.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Right. Right. And people don't understand that dopamine is just motivation. It makes you want to continue a behavior. It doesn't make you feel good. Dopamine hits are why you eat donuts. Like why I can eat a half a dozen donuts. That's literally why.
it's a
It's
feel
because you
good
get
feeling.
dopamine hit. That it feels good. So for
The
me,
well, the
that so
best
that's
way
it
I've
there.
been told about it is it's the feeling of being having someone giving you a hug.
Yes.
It releases that dopamine.
Yes.
I had a guest a while back who created a weighted pillow for people who have trouble sleeping, who have ADHD and stuff, because he did the research and it found out that the pillow releases that dopamine and other things that help that feel good feeling. And that feel good feeling is what helps you
Yeah.
sleep.
Huh. Really? I'd love to know about that. A weighted
Give a
pillow.
link to him.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Now, many neurodivergent people have been harmed or at least discouraged by systems meant to help them. What changes do you think the mental health field still needs to make?
Jeez Louise, man, stop treating us like we're disabled and stop I mean, yeah, the harm comes by forcing us into categories and into a way of thinking and being that simply isn't appropriate for us.
Mhm.
That
What would you
insistence that
love?
everybody needs to
Yeah.
be the same, and we're
Now,
not.
what would you love clinicians to unlearn?
Well, I'd like clinicians to become open minded about differences across the board, everywhere, with
Mhm.
everything.
What gives you hope that things are slowly shifting?
Well, because they are. I mean, looking back, I finished my I got my first master's in '87 and my second one '89 and then the doctorate in '96. Since then, the changes that have happened in this in all of what the special ed field, um
Mhm.
it's really been, I don't like the over reliance on medication. I think that
No.
if you can do things without it, you should.
Yeah.
But I actually, that's actually why I have a lot of hope, because they are continuing to do research, they are continuing to improve diagnosis, and I think that stuff like this is going to happen. I just We need a little bit more of a push because it's not a priority and it needs to be a priority, because the more they broaden that spectrum, the more depth they give that spectrum, the more people they start identifying, they're going to find other things besides AUDHD. And I think they need to be prepared for that and not immediately put everybody into this, well, you must be disabled, because you're not.
Now, for someone listening right now who is AUDHD and thinking, I want help, but I'm exhausted by bad therapy, what would you want them to know now?
Oh, how to contact me. Since you asked, I'll give you that so that they can. So just to say, I do teach the beginning technique for free. And I do that twice a week on Facebook, and it's also on Zoom, and it's recorded. So I do give stuff away because I recognize that not everybody can pay for that. And think my prices are very reasonable because I also recognize that we are underemployed and underpaid on the whole. And so I don't want to leave people out. I do that. So I make sure. So even today, when I did it this morning, what I drew on was not the basic technique. I did something completely different because, frankly, that's what I needed because of the shutdown that I was in. So I did what I needed, and that's this, which is different from the other ones.
Now, what's one small step they could take that doesn't feel overwhelming?
For But for what? I don't know what you mean.
To um,
Sorry.
if they're feeling overwhelmed.
Well, using a technique like this,
Hmm.
honestly, so this is something that this is an easy thing, and I'll just put it here on this pad. So what I do is so think about it. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, your brain's kind of like this,
Hmm.
right? It's kind of everywhere. Okay. So what I want to do is smooth it out. So instead, you can start just drawing lines like this, just nice, smooth, meandering lines, drawing circles because the brain recognizes circles as peace and completion. And just sitting down and doing this for 5 or 10 minutes is very soothing. So, but the other thing you can do is if you're really angry, and I love doing this, is like a 2 minute fix. So you set a timer for 2 minutes and you just start doing this. And you can think about what you're angry about, and you just get it out. And you can yell, you can growl, you can curse, all that lets all that out. And then after 2 to 3 minutes, you'll stop doing this. And it's
Hmm.
just out. You just vomited, like suck it out onto the page.
Yeah. Now, when you look back at your work you're doing now, what feels most meaningful to you?
That on the whole, I don't really suffer from RSD
Mhm.
anymore. While I still have it, obviously I had something happen and I did. I was able to get out of it very quickly and I haven't had a problem with it since. It's been my brain just shutting down. And not that it's a just, but that's actually one of the things I want to work on is trying to figure out how to stop things like that from happening.
And how has doing this work changed you?
Oh gosh. Oh, it's given me purpose.
Hmm.
It's given me, I mean, I'm 64. I
You don't look
started,
it.
I thank you, but I am. um, I, this is in a way a second career for me. In a way it is. I opened the business 5 years ago just as a personal trainer and nutritionist. And I quickly realized it wasn't what I wanted to do, that I wanted to be a life coach. And I kind of floundered around as a life coach and, got all these certifications, but I was just floundering around. And when I found out about myself a year and a half later, I kind of let everything go and I just worked on myself. And that's where this came from.
Mhm.
Um, the the drive it's given me because it's so personal, looking back on my life and what's happened in my
Mhm.
life, you know, understanding what that was and that I can possibly help other people not to have that same reality that I had. I'm not working with children right now, but the idea that maybe I could help children in
Mhm.
some way not have that problem because of the ability to externalize, learning just how to externalize your thoughts and your feelings.
And
So,
finally, if people find out more about you and and learn more about what you do.
well, I will give you my contact information. Does that work?
That works, that's fine. And I'll put it
Okay.
down in the description down below, everybody. And I
Okay.
just want to say I'm Reed Miles, and that was Stephanie Lewis. And I want to remind people you're never alone. Thank you,
No, you're
everybody. Thank
not.
you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Reed, for this was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.